What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video topic is going to be 10 things to do now before the November 2020 presidential election. A lot of people, I've gathered from reading comments on my own YouTube channel, my own website at Creekmore.com, other YouTube channels, face to face, that a lot of the conservatives, people on the right, don't think there's any chance that Donald Trump won't be the president after this next election. They think there's no way that Joe Biden is going to be president. They think that Donald Trump is got in the bag, so to speak. That couldn't be further from the truth. We all know elections, we've seen from the last presidential election, everyone thought that Hillary was going to win, including me. I figured Hillary was going to be the next president, and ended up being Donald Trump. The polls said Hillary was way ahead, and she still lost to Donald Trump. Different people say the election works a different way. People say that it's all smoke and mirrors and they're actually appointed. I'm not going to say what I think about that because that just gets a lot of comments started, a lot of negative crap started that isn't really important to the topic of this video, so I'm going to skip over that right now. But Donald Trump might not be the president after this election. Nothing's guaranteed, that's for certain. And there's so much hatred for Donald Trump on the left that everyone on the left that is eligible to vote, and a lot of people that aren't eligible to vote, deceased or illegal or whatever, that aren't really eligible to vote, will vote, and they'll vote against Donald Trump. So it's not guaranteed that Donald Trump is going to be the next president. And even if he does get elected or appointed or whatever, again for 4 more years, that doesn't mean that things are going to be just all hunky-dory for the American people. Look at what's going on right now. We have this virus, pandemic, panic, plandemic, whatever you want to call that. We have the virus, and they're using this virus for their own purposes. But who is president now? Donald Trump. Who was president during the lockdowns, the forced business closures? Donald Trump. Who was president when all the unemployment numbers were going sky high? Donald Trump. Who was president when we tacked another $6 trillion onto the national debt? Donald Trump. Who was president when all the rioting and looting is going on right now? Donald Trump. So just because Donald Trump is in the White House doesn't mean everything's going to be all hunky-dory. Everything isn't going to be hunky-dory no matter who wins the presidential election. It's going to get bad no matter how you look at it. If we know if Joe Biden becomes the next president, that the far left's agenda will be rolled out at rapid pace. We know that for sure. It's being rolled out now, but it's a little bit slower than it will be if Joe Biden gets elected. So we know what's going to happen then. Look at their whole agenda, what they've been pushing for, and if Joe Biden gets elected for president, or appointed for president, then everything that the left wants is going to come to fruition very quickly. And if Donald Trump is elected, we know what's going to happen then also. We're going to see more of what's been going on now, but I think it's going to increase in velocity, and it's going to explode even to larger areas and probably out into the countryside. The first 4 items on my 10-item list are specifically for people living in urban environments, while the next 6 items is for everyone. Let's get started. Number 1, if you live in any urban environment, if at all possible, get out of there, move now. Move to the country. Move somewhere where the population density is a lot less than where you are now. The less people you have to deal with, the less danger you'll be in, most likely. We know how it's going to be in the cities, especially if Donald Trump wins this next election. So if at all possible, you need to do that anyway, no matter what. The city is a crappy place to live. There's nothing there for me at all. I'd rather be dead than have to live in some place like New York City. And it's not going to happen. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to live in a place like that. And like I said, I'd rather be dead than live in a place like that. I don't see how anyone in their right mind would want to live in. A place like New York City, San Francisco, LA, these major urban areas. To me, it's crazy. If at all possible, and you're in those areas right now, get out. As Pastor Joe Fox says on a lot of his videos, come out of her, my people. Move to the country. Get out, and you'll be a whole lot happier and a whole lot safer in the long run. And try to do it now before November. Number 2, if for some reason you cannot move from the urban area that you're stuck in right now, if for some reason you cannot move out, then plan to bug out at least 2 weeks before the election date. Have your stuff ready, have everything ready to go, have a place picked out to leave to, and 2 weeks before the election, pack up and move. You might move, it'll be a temporary move, maybe, but pack your stuff up, get it ready, get your bug out items ready. If nothing else, go camping for a couple of weeks. Go out to a national park and set up a couple of tents for a couple of weeks and see what happens. But get out at least 2 weeks. A week might suffice, but 2 weeks even better. Get out and move, get out of the city, urban areas, and go to the country and just wait and see what happens. See who's elected and what happens. If nothing happens, then if you want to go back, you can. And who knows, you might like living in the country so well that you'll decide to stay. Number 3, the absolute worst case scenario. For some reason, you can't move out of the urban areas, or you can't leave 2 weeks before the election. You're stuck for whatever reason, and you can't go anywhere besides stay where you are in Detroit or wherever you are now in the urban area. You had no choice but to stay. So all you can do in that situation is stock up on food, up your security, your door locks, fire extinguishers, and do everything you can to prepare to survive where you are now. Better door locks, better security. Get armed. Get at least a handgun, a shotgun. My personal preference, if I was stuck in a city and had to prep in the city and had to prepare to survive in the city, for self-defense, I would want something like a Glock 17 or a Glock 19 paired up with the Ruger PC9 carbine, which will also use the Glock magazines. That way you can stock up on one type of ammunition, 9mm, and one type of magazine that will work in your carbine and your handgun. But if you're stuck in the city, up your security in every way that you possibly can. Get your security as high as it can possibly be where you are. Get armed, stockpile your food, your water, stockpile everything that you can to wait it out, because you had no other choice. But if at all possible, like I said in the first 2 items, get out of the urban areas before the election. Get out right now if you possibly can. And number 4, if you're stuck in the urban area, go order a couple of Black Lives Matter t-shirts from Amazon. I'll put a link in the description box below. If you live in the urban areas, order a few of those t-shirts. That way, if you have to go out and leave your apartment for any reason, you can put on that t-shirt, and it might buy you a little bit of time, and it might keep you from getting assaulted or murdered while you're out. Not a guarantee, that's for certain, not a guarantee, but it could help. It's going to be better than having something like, if you're in the city and you're wearing a shirt out that said Trump for president, or Trump is my president. You'll come a lot more likely to being attacked during the rioting and looting than you would be if you had a Black Lives Matter t-shirt on. So it's a good idea, I think, to buy a couple of those t-shirts if you're going to be stuck in urban areas, and just put those back and have those ready just in case you have to go out, and you put that on and you might blend in and come a little less likely to get assaulted, murdered, or raped, or all 3. Okay, number 5. I've said this before in other videos, but stock up on full capacity rifle and handgun magazines. We know that the Democrats have been wanting to ban full capacity magazines. They want to call them high capacity magazines, but they're actually full capacity magazines because for, say, AR-15, the 20 and 30 round magazines are standard capacity magazines. For the AK, a 30 round is a standard capacity magazine or a full capacity magazine. It's not a high capacity. It's a standard capacity that they're made to, that the AR and the AK are designed to use. So they're not high capacity magazines. That's something that they want to use in the media to try to demonize those magazines or make it look like it's something that is specially made to make the weapon more deadly, and it's actually just what they're designed to use. But anyway, stock up on full capacity magazines, because you know if Joe Biden gets in there that they're going to be after the guns. That's the first thing they're going to do, is pass those gun laws, pass those semi-automatic bans, pass those full capacity magazine bans. And we all know when they do that, there'll be a lot of magazines still in existence. They might make that a felony to actually own those magazines. I don't know about that. It might not be. When Bill Clinton was president, they had, I forget which year it was right now off my head, but they passed that assault weapon ban, and magazines with capacity over 10 rounds were banned for anyone but military and law enforcement use. And they were actually stamped on the side of the magazines for law enforcement use only on those. You can still find magazines. They wasn't as easy to find as they are now, but you can still find those. But I remember like a Glock 17 magazine was $100 when you could find those. So we know they're going to go after the Second Amendment. They're going to go after the full capacity magazines. We'll stock up on those. Even if you don't own an AK, if you don't own an AR-15 or a Glock or Beretta, and you see those magazines at a good price, pick those up. They're not going to go down in price. Pick those up and have those on hand, because you might be able to barter those if you don't have the firearm to actually use that type of magazine. Granted, you better off to stock up on magazines that you had the firearms for, which is what I mostly do. But if you can find them at a good price, snatch those things up and put them back in storage. You might want to hide those just in case they make it a felony to own those. But there's still going to be a black market. You can still sell those. You can still barter on those. And if you have 150 AR-15 magazines, AK magazines, then you don't worry nearly as much about them passing laws to ban those or make those more expensive and harder to get. So stock up on the full capacity magazines. Number 6, and just like the magazines I mentioned in item number 5, trade for, buy semi-automatic firearms. If you don't have one now, go buy one. Go buy 4 or 5 if you can afford it. Because like I said, if Joe Biden wins, gets appointed, or is the next president of the United States, the first thing they're going to go after is the firearms, the ammunition, the full capacity magazines. So if you can buy an AK, if you can buy an AR-15, those are the top 2 that they want to ban. They want to ban all semi-automatics, but those 2 are the main 2, and especially the AR-15 for some reason. It seems nowadays. It used to be the AK, and now they moved their focus over to banning the AR-15 type rifles. Buy those, as many as you possibly can now, while the price is decent, if you can still find those now. My local gun shop, I stopped in there a few days ago, and they actually had 3 or 4 still yet on the shelf for sale. And I didn't really look at the price of each one to see what the price is, but they still had them available. So if you possibly can, buy those and buy as many as you can, because shortly they may not be legal, and if they are grandfathered in, which they probably won't be, they will be very expensive to get a hold of. Now I know, talking about full capacity magazines and semi-automatic rifles like AR-15s and AKs, and talking about those things becoming illegal to own, a lot of people watching this video will probably get all jittery and shaky inside, because they don't want to break the law. And that decision is up to you. If you want to, if they pass a law that says your AR-15 is now illegal, your semi-automatic .22 rifle is now illegal because of the way it operates, to turn those in. If you don't, you could be imprisoned, you could be fined. If you want to go turn those in, that's up to you. I'm not telling you to break the law, but for me, personally, I won't be turning anything in. Number 7, bury some needed essential gear within a 2-hour, no more than 2-hour walking distance from where you are now, from where you live. You can put the before mentioned rifles, magazines, some ammunition in those with some other supplies, but have a few secret caches of supplies buried around your general area. Make sure you had those marked, GPS marked, where you know where they are, or have some way of remembering exactly where you put those under the ground. You want those buried under the ground. If you can, you can buy ready-made cache tubes that are they call cache vault or something like that, I think it was. I actually have one that's been a few years since I bought that, and I buried that a long time ago. I know exactly where it's at, but I forgot exactly what it's called. It's one of the bigger ones, and good luck finding it, by the way. You're welcome to try, though, if you want. But a 2-mile radius from my house here is a whole lot of property and a whole lot of area to search out and try to find something. And it's better, it's easier to bury your cache tube long ways, but it's also easier to find. If you can bury it, dig a hole straight down and bury it lengthways into the ground before you cover that up, it's going to be harder to find because you have a smaller surface area on the top. And people will try to find those with metal detectors, so you can actually, if you know where there's a bunch of old metal at, like an old homestead, old home place where there's a lot of stuff that would cause false alarms, and the metal detectors to keep going off at different places, and they keep digging and can't find anything, they'll get discouraged and leave if your cache is buried in that area. It makes it harder to find. But you can also make those from PVC pipe, 6-inch PVC pipe, 4-inch PVC pipe, and get a cap for the bottom and a clean out adapter and a clean out plug to go on the top, and you have a cheap cache tube, but you can put supplies in, survival gear, food, weapons, whatever you need, and put those around your area to have those just in case something happens. Those are good in case you lose your main supplies where you are in your home, your homestead, or something happens you have to leave in a hurry and you have supplies to fall back on. Number 8, every time that you go to the supermarket to buy groceries, buy double what you need if you can afford it at all possible. Buy as much extra every time you go to the grocery store. Buy as much extra as you can find and as you can afford, and put that back. If you start doing that today, if you can afford to spend another $20, you can afford to spend another $50 extra besides what you're already planning on buying or need right now. If you can buy extra every time that you go, if you stock up now and do that and buy extra every time you go, $20, $50, $100 extra, whatever you can afford at the time, but always buy extra every time you go and put that back. By the time the November gets here, you have a pretty good food stockpile on hand. That's one way of stocking up without actually really thinking about stocking up. Just buy what you normally buy, just buy more of it, and buy as much you can afford every time that you go grocery shopping. Number 9, do everything you can now to increase your security. I talked about this a minute ago when I was talking about if you're stuck in an urban area to increase your security. Do the same thing if you live in rural country areas. Increase your security, look around your property, look at your home, and try to figure out what would a thief do if they was trying to break into my property. Where is the likely way they would get in? Is there a specific window, specific door, specific way they would sneak in? Look at your property and think, if I was being attacked by a mob, what's the first thing they would do? And try to harden up those defenses. It's best if you can defend your property. I've talked about this in another video, but it's best if you can defend your property away from your property. If you're stuck in your house trying to defend your house, that's not a really good position to be in. You're better off to stop any threat before it gets to your property. But in that, if you have if it goes to court after that, then it's harder to prove self-defense if you was away from your property. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You're better off to defend your property away from your property, but it gives you less legal grounds to defend your property if there's still law in court going on, which I think there probably will be, because the government is locked in and they have plans to stay in power and to seize more power during disasters. If you look at disasters that's happened, instead of the government going away, you can look at any country, and instead of the government going away, they lock down power, or they have internal civil war in the country. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's good to increase your security in any way possible. Look around, figure out your weak areas, and target those areas and harden those areas up as best you possibly can now before the November election. And number 10, if you can afford it at all possible, stock up on some silver. Don't go overboard on this, but get what you can if you can afford it. Get your food first, your full capacity magazines first, your security first. But then after that, if you can afford to, then buy some silver, some gold, and you might want to also look into investing in a small amount of Bitcoin. Don't go overboard on any of these, but it's a good thing to hedge your bets financially. And silver and gold and Bitcoin is 3 ways to kind of offer a little protection from the economic collapse and hyperinflation that's coming. Well guys, if you're looking for more information on prepping and survival, go down the description box below and look for links to my books and to my CD-ROM, the Bulletproof Survivor CD-ROM program. Look for that and my books in the description box below, and go check those out. They have information on pretty much everything you need to know about prepping and survival. Well guys, thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video.